Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Behruz Momeni, the CEO of BeMo and SwordSmart. Good afternoon, Behruz.
Good afternoon, Mark. Thanks very much for having me today.
Thank you for joining us today. So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
For sure. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. Essentially, what I do right now it seems very unrelated to my educational background. I did a training as a scientist. I did a PhD in immunology at the University of Toronto. And when I was finishing up my PhD studies, I realized that there is some issues with the admissions process in higher education process. So I noticed that there was some implicit bias during the applicant screening. For example, a lot of individuals were selected and there was a bias against individuals from certain socioeconomic backgrounds or racial backgrounds or cultural backgrounds. I did a little bit more research, and at the time, of course, I was trained as a scientist, so I did lots of research, and then I realized, this doesn't make any sense. Why are the things being done scientifically? And just because I've done so much education myself and I've been in it so much, I just decided that this is what I want to do. I want to dedicate my life to. I had a job offer at the end of my PhD. I said no to that job offer to start BeMo, which is in the business of helping students with admissions to highly competitive graduate and professional programs. For example, we help a lot of students who want to go into medical school for the medical school admissions process. Now, fast forward a few years after that, I realized, well, yeah, we could keep helping more and more people, but it's not realistically gonna get at the root cause of the problem, which is at the admissions, which is essentially practices that are used by universities themselves. So I decided, is there any way we could help universities? That's when the idea for SwordSmart, my second company, came about. And it's a company where we help higher education institutions, universities and colleges, and also employers with applicant screening of their applicants. So this is kind of like complementary to what we do at BeMo. And a lot of things I learned was from seeing what universities do, that some of it that works, some of it that doesn't work. And now the idea is, and we have had pretty good success, is can we select individuals who are intrinsically motivated, coachable, and conscientious? Because research has shown that when individuals have these three qualities, more likely they're going to stay with the organization in the long term. They're more genuine in their sort of stated interest. And as a result, they're going to be actually happier doing their job, and they're going to perform better over the long term than those who are selected willy-nilly. And not only because bias, you actually don't know if they're intrinsically motivated at all or not.
Very interesting. So out of curiosity, the initial research that you did, was that at the University of Toronto, or was that like higher institutions in general?
So the research I did was, first of all, independent of what I was doing at a PhD student. This was just my own curiosity. And I looked at a lot of research that was done. So I did a literature research, seeing if there's any research being done about the bias in the admissions process. And I saw this across the board. This was across the US. There's many reported cases across different domains, medical education, to law, to many different programs. It's not limited to any specific program, to even people being, admitted for undergraduate degrees. So it's not just, postgraduate, it's also undergraduate. Standardized tests, GPA, grades, and most selection methods, such as standard interviews or situational judgment tests, that have been shown to show varying degrees of bias. And again, this has been done in the US, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, anywhere I looked. And when you see this, this is the best evidence that this data is real. People are finding the same sort of results in different geographical location, independent of each other.
Very interesting. So can you share your experience with remote employment? I mean, it sounds like you've been an employer most of your life. Is that correct?
I have been say again?
An employer. It sounds like you've yet to be an employee. It sounds like you started BeMo right out of college, right?
Yes, right a bit before, about a month or two before I was about to graduate in my PhD program, I started BeMo already.
Mm.
And essentially it's completely remote. And the reason we started remote was twofold. One, as a broke recent graduate, I could not afford an office. So that was out of the question. So that was not happening at all. Two, I realized I actually get more work done on my own terms with just like my office, it's just my laptop. I don't need to go anywhere. It's a knowledge-based business. Everything was done online. We had a website. I'm like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. There was some resistance initially from students trying to, come and seek our services, because at the time we had many competitors when I started this. And of course I was not as experienced as I am right now, so I didn't really look into this properly, but most of our competitors did this, what we wanted to offer one-on-one. So there was resistance from prospective students who wanted to use our services. So over time, this kind of was managed because we were able to show them we could do the same thing a lot more efficiently, in fact, and we did a really good job. Because of that, we were allowed to do that. Now, I think it worked out over time, because I also noticed that employees, obviously at the beginning, this wasn't a matter. It was just me and my laptop, and then we started adding more shifts to the kitchen. But employees actually really enjoyed this. And if you go and read our reviews about, for example, our employees working at either BeMo or SourceSmart, you see normally one of the things they like is the fact that the work is remote and they have the freedom to do this job wherever they are geographically. And we have like multiple employees, for example, that travel a lot. As long as the job gets done, why not?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. So what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think can be done differently to make it more effective?
To make, I guess, remote work more effective, I think it's really important to have certain SOPs and checks and balances in place, but without having to resort on, this, I guess, the old concept of that, like, if I don't see you doing the work, that means you're not doing the work.
Right.
That's not the case. It's very easy to have checks and balances, for example, weekly, monthly, quarterly milestones. And if the management team of a company has perfect ways to assess those and see whether things are getting done, that's all that matters. Yeah, some people might be very experienced and good. They might get it done within 2 hours. Who cares? Some people might need more time, and they may need to do this thing that takes 2 hours for an experienced person, 12 hours to do it. But again, who cares? As long as the person gets it done and they understand that, and everything is done within the obviously laws and regulations of the jurisdiction, I actually think it would be more effective, because it reduces travel time, the unnecessary chit chat in the office that causes distraction. So for example, one of the feedbacks I got recently from a couple of our employees is, you know what, Beirut, can you send us less text during the day? I'm like, oh my God, I forgot. But wait, if this was an office, imagine what would have happened. Like, yeah, you guys make a good point. I'm going to try not to send you guys as much text asking for updates for this and that. But I think it's actually more effective doing this remote. And it's a win-win situation for both the organizations and employers.
Interesting.
And employees, I should say.
Yes. And so what is the story behind BeMo and SourceSmart? When did you start? And then, it sounds like your target audience are both the students and the universities, correct?
Yeah, so essentially I started back in 2013. Spring of 2013 is when we came up with the idea of BeMo. And the target audience for BeMo was initially, this was supposed to be a tutoring company. We were just going to tutor on, let's say, math skills or sciences, but then our very first individual, because we weren't sure we were going to work in the admissions right away, we thought, oh, this is hard. We need to build our, our workforce or knowledge base or all that. But the very first person, just because I was already, the reason I started, if you recall, was because I'm passionate about the admissions process, and that's what I wanted to have an impact. As I have been talking to a lot of friends, one of my friends essentially said, hey, I'm applying to 5 different schools. Can you help me out? It was a graduate program they were applying.
Mm-hmm.
So we helped them out. And this was like at the time when we had 0 customers, obviously. This was just a new company, no customers. We had lots of time on our hand. We didn't know what to do. Like, sure, we'll help you out. We helped this person for free, and they got into every single 5 schools. And then we're like, wait a minute, this was even more interesting. Why don't we just do this? Immediately changed the website, again, because this was not an office. It's a lot easier. It's just the website. We changed it. We're like, okay, let's try this out. And then we started advertising based on our services, based on the fact that we could help you get into different graduate and professional programs. And what we noticed was that actually most people that really sought our help were people in really competitive programs. Other programs that were not competitive, I guess in hindsight, it makes sense. They did not really need our help. But for example, pre-medical students were the people that kept knocking on our door, and we kept helping them, and this kept going on for a while. As we had more and more testimonials and word of mouth, it just got the ball rolling, and we started exponential growth after the first year. It just went really exponential. Then the idea for SortSmart came in because, at BeMo, again, I kept thinking this doesn't make sense. We're not going to be able to help everyone. This process doesn't seem necessarily scientific or fair. And we could see at BeMo, a lot of really good students were not being accepted. And it was really heartbreaking. At the same time, we would see students who really didn't want to be there getting acceptance left, right, and center. So that got me really thinking. I'm like, yeah, it must be something we could do. It got me into studying what are the qualities that have shown correlation with actual on-the-job behavior. And that's what led me to find out that, standardized tests don't work. They just cause bias. They don't correlate with anything at all, most of them. Grades and GPA also does not correlate with anything. Eventually, we came up with the 3 that I mentioned earlier, which is intrinsic motivation, coachability, and conscientiousness. Once we had that, we were like, okay, what's the other impediment to having a fair admissions process? It's normally travel time. People having to travel to different destinations, it's just really costly and it's not feasible. Especially at this, like for example, what's happening right now in the world, imagine trying to get people to travel. So we said, okay, how can we put all of this together and come up with a screening software that could actually screen everyone, doesn't cause the same level of bias, and it's all done online, and it's free for the students. So it doesn't cause any burden of travel or any other cost. Some other ways we'll figure out how we're gonna generate revenue for this business. So that eventually started this, and then we started doing some pilot testing. BeMo, so my first business, became the first pilot for SortSmart, and I have used, so this is 2017 now. Since the application for SortSmart became operational, BeMo has exclusively used SortSmart to hire applicants. We don't use anything else. It works great. It has reduced our rate of turnover by, I think, 30 something percent. I don't want to say the exact number just because I don't remember on the top of my head, but it's very significant. And we're actually able to, we notice people that come in, they're more genuine. It's just like, of course, the job doesn't end there. Once people come in, I do understand that there still needs to be nourishing, coaching, etc. But at least you want to make sure you get the right people in through the door if you're any sort of a business. So once I validated that on my own business, so we started taking our own medicine. And once I was convinced, then we started advertising to universities and other employers. And now we've had some success with helping universities screen their applicants. And this is, again, great because they could do this remotely, and it's a whole lot easier to run, less time consuming, more cost effective, and it's actually more fair for everyone involved.
Interesting. And just out of curiosity, what do you spend more of your time on now, BeMo or SortSmart?
You know what? I think my attention is divided pretty much equally, and the fact that there's complementary sort of clientele for both of them, it makes it easy. I'm not sure, for example, if I could do 2 completely different businesses. It's just because I don't have that sort of capability. I know some serial entrepreneurs, they have like a business here, a business there, and some of them are related. I can't do that. I think the only reason this works is because BeMo uses SortSmart, first of all, so it has to be always top notch. If there's an issue, BeMo is like #1 client, has to be fixed. 2, they're complementary. helping students for admissions and then helping universities with their admissions process.
Interesting. So you've been remote since day one, as you said. How did you incorporate that? I mean, when you started hiring people, what did you have in place to onboard them and things like that?
So initially was a lot of trial and error, and was mostly error, I should say, actually. It's error, and error. And what we did was like, again, at the beginning, I think just any good startup, just like the idea is you just got to get going, whatever. And then you learn from your experience. Like, it doesn't matter how many books you read, how many coaches you get, you got to keep doing it. And what we did was we used simple tools, like whatever thing that was free. For example, we used Skype or Zoom or whatever, first of all, to get, and we only did communication via video conference, such as this, for example, telephone or email. So that was the easy part, to get it all set up and running. The other thing we did was we wanted to make sure that when we hire individuals, they know upfront that this is fully remote. They need to be able to manage their own time. They should have a nice quiet place, I guess, home office that they could work and, they're comfortable. With those expectations, slowly, we were able to add more bells and whistles and make more, as we made errors, we figured, okay, we got to fix this part, we got to fix that part. We're able to do this. And, over time, we realized, the limitations, and we have like backup plans for every possible limitation that we could possibly have a backup plan for, just to make sure that, first of all, our clients get the best service. They always come first. Secondly, our team can communicate, still, feel like it's a team, because that's one of the dangers of being remote. And I guess, a lot of concern most employers have is, how can I build a team and make that sort of like a actual feeling of having a team when they're all remote all over the place? So there's ways to do that. So we have ways to engage people, again, all remote. And most of the apps that we use are usually online, available for free. And other ways to make sure that the team still engages. There is also an element, whenever we can, of adding actual one-on-one, I guess, interaction. So for us, once every quarter, we actually get everybody together. We get all employees, even if they're not from Toronto, we fly them, we get together 4 times a year, just so that, we have a dinner. It's nothing like, formal. We just have a dinner, have fun, and that's it, just so that we have a combination of both. But for the overall operations, it works great. And I think it's, like I mentioned, it's actually way more efficient and everybody's more happy.
And I assume, and maybe you can correct me, you have employees both in the US and Canada, correct?
Yeah, so we have employees. Over the years, we actually have employees pretty much everywhere. We've had employees, I guess, in Europe, in UK. We've had people in Australia. We've had people, right now we have someone who works in Israel. We have had people in US and Canada. Yeah, we have essentially, we don't discriminate against someone based on where they are. It just doesn't make sense unless there's a specific reason that they have to be in Toronto or they have to be in the US. They're all over the place.
Great. So you're truly a global company.
Yeah, pretty much.
Based in a beautiful city, and a very global city, Toronto is.
Yeah, it is. It's actually, I think it's a pretty multicultural city. You'll see all different people from different cultural backgrounds, which makes Toronto really a very beautiful place to see, just because of all different cultures present.
Yeah. So the ongoing pandemic, we've touched on it, but it forced everyone to go remote in March of this year. You already were 100% remote, so it probably didn't affect you that much. But were there any things you didn't expect that came out of it, or anything to your customers that you didn't expect would happen?
You know what? When the pandemic hit, just like everybody else, I was really concerned. We were really worried. I had to consult with our team to say, hey guys, this is what's happening. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm trying my best. I'll get back to you guys if there's anything we need to do. And I kept keeping open communication with everyone every week at the first initial week, so that they know, hey, everything's cool. I'm checking all of our numbers. Everything's still cool. Everything's cool. And what the first thing we did within a few days was we held a webinar, again, because we're remote, we're used to doing these things. we held a webinar for all of our students, both individuals who were actually our current students and working with us, and also individuals who were prospective students, either our email list or anybody else visiting our website, where we told them, hey, everything's cool. There's ways, yeah, there's things that are going to be impacted and it's going to get worse, but there's ways you could actually take this opportunity to make enhancements to whatever you want to do right now, whether it's your application, et cetera, et cetera. So doing all of these combination of these things, I think helped reassure our team. It reassured our, I guess, students and clients and customers. And we were lucky. We were one of the few lucky businesses that weren't impacted. Neither SwordSmart or BeMo were impacted directly. So which allowed us to eventually more focus on how can we provide a better service to our students, or also try to do some maybe free initiatives for people who have been impacted.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we could do. So we decided to do that. But we were one of the lucky ones. It didn't actually directly impact us at all.
Well, actually, I would think you might have actually benefited in that students who used to be on the fence now all of a sudden had a lot more free time, since they had no social life anymore. So they had more free time to don't. Is that true?
Exactly. So that's what our hypothesis is. This actually provided an opportunity, and it's completely luck. Again, any sort of, like, there's so many things that have affected us negatively. This one was one of the ones that affected us, maybe, as you mentioned, a little bit actually positively. That both for BeMo and SwordSmart, we noticed, yes, it's a lot easier to now start the conversation, get people on the phone, get them to actually sign up for things. It just became a lot easier. I should actually say, even for SwordSmart, it was a lot easier, because now universities, they can do their interviews, for example. So it's like, there's no need to explain why, SwordSmart is going to help versus a traditional interview.
Yeah, that's true. So, and that's good. I mean, there are companies that certainly were hurt horribly, but I've also talked to other CEOs that they actually have seen an increase in business. Mm-hmm. So, and it just depends upon the sector you're in. So
absolutely, yeah. It's I feel like there's definitely certain sectors were really hit hard. Other sectors actually have seen a pretty good positive impact.
Yes.
It's just, I think what needs to happen now is people who have been fortunate enough need to remember that something reverse could happen to them. So now is the time when they should be able to help out as much as they can. Again, every business is different. It has to be within reason and what they can and cannot do. But if they can, it's a good idea for them to help out.
Yeah. So there are companies like Gaper that help develop, build, and scale products. How important do you think this is going forward for companies like yourself that, I mean, you already believe in the remote worker philosophy, but for other companies that are on the fence, what would you say, how important is it to be able to hire quality people from anywhere in the world and in a hurry?
Yeah, so, I mean, you probably agree, one of the, I guess, fundamental things for any business is the ability to attract and recruit top talent as fast as possible. That's the right person for the right job, and it's going to stay with you in the long term. Mm. I don't think anybody disputes that. So any company that could accelerate this, I think, is valuable. And because of what's happening now in the world, I think this becomes even more important. Mm. In some sense, like we discussed just right now, it's actually has brought attention to the fact that having remote workers is not necessarily any sort of liability. It could actually be an asset, because they're more agile. They could get more better work done. Plus, you're not limited to a certain pool of applicants because of a geographical location. You got the entire world. You could go get the best in the world, rather than, I don't know, I'm just going to hire someone from San Francisco, or no, I have to hire someone from Toronto, or no, it has to be from London. It just doesn't make sense. You're limiting yourself significantly by the applicant pool. It's doomed to fail anyways.
Yeah, and even taking it farther, living in San Francisco, it's not just someone from San. If your office is in San Francisco, someone from the East Bay or someone from San Jose isn't going to make that commute. It's just too painful every day. And
It's not, it's expensive. It's just like now you have to pay them more salary because it has to be fair for the living costs. So you cannot just cut corners. You have to be fair at the end of the day. And well, the fare is a lot higher in San Francisco than it is when you're hiring remote.
yeah, this is absolutely true. Well, Behrooz, I want to thank you for your time today. This has been very interesting, and I wish you luck with both of your companies.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And have a great night.
You too.